Hello fellow engineers and welcome back to another video on this channel. Let's take a look at this beauty. Starting with the basic facts. The Valkyrie by Viper comes in at 16,880 blocks and a PCU count of 43,731. It is vanilla and uses a lot of DLCs. Also, it uses a couple of scripts for some features and some subgrids as well. Oh, and actually it is completely small grid. For those who know it, this obviously is a replica of the design of the Anvil Valkyrie from Star Citizen. And even from the first look you already can tell Viper did a great job on that. And it's not only on the details, it's also with the size, because this is almost a 1-to-1 scale. Now let's start with a walk around and see what we have here. Starting with a really nice cockpit, some kind of gunship-like style, and I really have to say I know how difficult this is to do. Because we do have a couple of glass shapes for cockpits, but actually you are very limited to some options due to airtightness. And it actually is a hell of a work to work out such a nice shape. Also, we have some great intakes on the front, and I really have to say this is the first time I appreciate the use of the heat vents for that. And I also appreciate the great opportunity to explain a little about the design philosophy and principle that stands behind this choice. Because it is very common that we see this in a lot of builds these days. But in most cases it is glowing like yellow, orange or red. But warm colors do imply the presence of heat, which for intakes just doesn't make sense. So actually for that use case it is way better to choose a colder color like a light blue, or even better the white Viper is using here, because that is not even changing the color of the surrounding blocks. And yeah, actually I'm pretty sure this is how deep Viper's thoughts go when he is creating something like this. And that gas bases on a lot of interesting builds from his workshop page. And I am really waiting for that one to be published. However, let's get back to the Valkyrie. We do have some well-integrated forward-facing thrusters here. And again, this is a really nice design choice. Also from the front we see a couple of player-made turrets. One on the top with a relatively simple design, but very good matching to the whole design. And some more on the winglets on the sides. And almost the same player-made turret we know from the top, also at the bottom. As well as a couple of forward-facing static Gatling guns under the cockpit. And as far as I've seen, this weaponry is pretty much accurate to the original. Another thing that catches the eyes are these engine pods. And yes, they actually are VTOL, but we will see that in a flight test later. Considering the decent amount of thrust this ship has anyway, it kind of seems unnecessary to make them work. But let's be honest, how disappointing would that be if these won't turn? Another thing that really has to be pointed out is the mix and the use of the textures here on the top of the ship. Because in Space Engineers, if you ever tried making big surfaces look techy and structured without being repeatedly generic, you will have noticed that the number of available textures for that actually is very little. And yes, this already has gotten way better due to the many updates over the last couple of years. But still, even with the options we have now, this is top-notch detailing and an actual pain to make the right choices for it. And I can already hear a couple of people from the hardcore PvP meta scene. But it's so useless! And yeah, so is gaming at all. Although there is a little critics I want to say about these custom letters. There is a couple of ways to let these look a little more military or aerospace-like. But since this overall just great build doesn't deserve such nagging, I will hold back. Maybe instead I should make a video tutorial about how to make decent looking custom letters. And if you are interested in that, let me know in the comments down below or on my Discord that is linked in the description. Now, before we get inside of this nice little ship, let's take a look at its back. Here we have some nice clean shapes, some position lights and a cargo ramp. A nice little cargo bay in here, and since this is described as a dropship, We will check if this can hold a small vehicle in the end. Also, we can enter this from the sides through some personnel entrance on both sides. And we can close that again from the inside. From here we have some control over the magnetic plates on the ground to hold cargos or vehicles. And some over the lights. And on both sides we have some doors to the passenger area. Some nice use of the steel beam blocks. And on the sides between the seats we can already see there are a couple of scripts running on these programmable blocks. And one section further we have a control seat for the top and bottom player mate turrets. The last thing to see is the cockpit. Here we do have a navigation system, an advanced artificial horizon, a radar system, an integrity monitoring, and an inventory manager. Now, just in case you're one of that badass engineers who wants to replicate this in an actual survival game, let's check the amount of subgrids we have to handle here. Therefore, we touch the main grid, press Ctrl, Shift and X, confirm, and we can put the main grid right to the rest of it. And actually it doesn't seem to be that much and very much solvable for a clever engineer. If you do need some help with that, I have a couple of tutorials on my channel about it. Now let's see the acceleration it does. And actually it's not that bad for a ship of almost 17,000 blocks. And also braking is not that bad. And even sidewards we have some decent speeds. How about turning? And rolling? And actually it could be worse. But let's see what its VTOL can do in gravity. Now in atmosphere it appears to be very heavy, but it kind of works. And the more of a bigger problem is that the nacelles don't want to turn all at the same time. So they are a little wobbly, but the torque of the rotors already is set to the limit. So maybe there should be some additional work done. Now, if the VTOL are in that configuration, it works just fine. The downside is, in this configuration, you can't use the very short landing gears at the bottom. Now, after I've reversed the rotation of the front nacelles, now, doesn't work. The rotor lock is turned off and I can't manage to get all of them into the right direction. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like none of my builds do have such problems sometimes, but that's a little bit of a disappointment. Well, I will spawn back in the blueprint and then we will see if we can at least fit in some other vehicle into the cargo bay. Now let's see if we can land like this. There we have the little landing gear. Oh, ooh, something is clanging. You have to be really careful with that. Maybe we just turn off the engines. For some reason it doesn't touch down. So we might have to stay in hover mode. Let's open the ramp and see. Now here we have my little 2x2 wheeled quad. Let's see if that fits in. Whoa. It kind of works. It's in. Oh, the antenna is already touching the roof. And now for the Sparrow. I'm not that much of a great pilot. Definitely seems too big. Not like both would fit in. So, but at least the quad does. Now let's lock the panel. It does show up green. Close the cargo bay. And there we go. Now keep in mind, these builds are meant to be more of an inspiration and an object to explore than an actual survival ready build. And if this one made you interested, you might visit Viper's workshop and leave him a like for it. And maybe for this video as well. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. And if you want to see your build reviewed on this channel, you might use the Showcase to Kelevra thread on my Discord. And now, thanks for watching, see you next time, bye!